Okay, so this video is meant to remind you how to solve multi-step linear equations. So your first step is to see if you can use the distributive property, and you know if you can just use the distributive property if you see some parentheses. So I do see some parentheses right here, which means I'm going to distribute this 3 to both terms inside the parentheses. Now, this is actually a -3, that -3. When I see that, I'm actually distributing a -3. So -3 times +4 is -12x, and -3 times -8 is +24. And I'm just going to bring down all the other terms. That's what it says here. So I've got x plus 10 minus 1/4 of x equals 11x. So step 2, combine all like terms on each side of the equation. So I'm going to look at each side separately when I combine these like terms. So let's look on this side, okay? I've got an x, and there's another term with an x. So this is actually a 1x. How many x's is it? Just 1x. And 1x take away 1/4 x leaves me with 3/4 of an x. This 10, there's no other constant term on this side. It can't be combined with anything on this side of the equation. So looking at the other side, I've got an 11x and a minus 12x. So 11x, if I take 12x away from that, I'll get -1x. And again, on this side, there's no other constant term, so I just leave the 24 as is. So I'm done. You might notice I didn't combine the 24 and the 10. They are like terms, but they're on different sides of the equation. That's why I could not combine them. Now, since if the equation's variables on both sides, then I'm going to need to use addition or subtraction to eliminate a variable. And what I'm trying to do is get a 0x. So I'm going to eliminate this -1x. So the question is, what could I do to -1x to make it become 0x? And the answer is to add 1x to both sides. So I'm going to add 1x to both sides of this. Those get eliminated. And that would give me 1 3/4 x plus 10. That was eliminated, so all I have on the other side is this 24. Okay. So step 3 is done because I only have x's on one side of the equation now. Now I have to eliminate constant terms. So 10 and 24 are both constant terms. I'm going to eliminate 10 because it's on the same side as the x. So here's x. I'm trying to isolate x, get x alone. So I'm going to take away 10 from both sides of this equation. I'm left with 1 3/4 x equals 24. Take away 10 is 14. Okay, so step 4 is done. Now I'm on step 5. I've got to use multiplication or division to isolate the variable. So my x isn't really alone. I still have a coefficient here. I have to do the inverse operation. Inverse means opposite. Now we're looking at a fraction. So we need to eliminate a fraction, which means we need to multiply by the reciprocal. First, I'm going to change this into a mixed number. So 1 3/4 is actually the same as 7/4. And now I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 7/4, I flip that over, that's 4/7. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4/7. Okay? Well, if I multiply this, 7/4 by 4/7, I actually get 28/28x, which is just 1x. So that's all I have left on this side. And over here, I would get 14 times 4. And by the way, 14 is really 14/1, 14 wholes. Okay? So 14 times 4 is 56, and 1 times 7 is 7. So I've got 56 sevenths, and 56 divided by 7 is 8. So x is 8. So there's just a review of how to solve a multi-step linear equation. I added all the parts to this that you might expect from linear equations, like the distributive property, combining like terms, having an x on both sides, having to eliminate a constant term, and then what to do if you have a fraction as your coefficient.